For me, I don't need to see everything. When I was younger, I used to have FOMO. If I went to a place, I felt like, oh, I have to go and see that place and I have to go check that out. I don't tend to have that anymore. I love meeting people. I love seeing different places. So up until my old age, maybe even in my deathbed, I'll still be traveling.
Boom, what is up guys? Welcome back. I am joined here today by Arny, who has some incredible travel stories. I was speaking to you a few days ago, I think, about some of your incredible stories just in Africa and different places. And so I'm really excited to bring that to the audience here today. So Arny, thank you for jumping on.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Awesome. Let's do it. So tell me, how'd you get into this whole travel scene? Like what made you want to start traveling?
Well, traveling's in my blood. I've been doing it since a baby, so it's been with me my whole life. And as an adult, it's stuck with me. It's something I enjoy. I love meeting people. I love seeing different places. So up until my old age, maybe even in my deathbed, I'll still be traveling.
Travel till we die. I love it, man. So what's like one crazy moment that you've experienced from traveling? What's one thing that comes to mind?
Oof. Honestly, there's so many, but you mentioned it earlier already, like also because it's a recent one. Africa is one that I've just done, which really stands out, really stands out.
Yeah. So
I went to Africa for 2 months. I was there just before coming here to Bali, and I was living out in the bush. I went there to support some friends of mine. They took over a business out in Zambia, and it's literally in the middle of nowhere, out in the bush. It's self-sustained. It's gorgeous. If you want to know where, hook me up. I'll let you guys know where exactly. But I went there to help them out to do some construction work. In my older ages or younger ages, I used to do some construction and building. So I was supporting them on that. And then I was living in a tent. I was living in a tent in the middle of the bush. And there's a difference when you go there on holiday to live there for a week, as opposed to living there for 2 months. You really start to understand the language of the nature that's there.
Yeah.
The sounds, the singing, the different types of birds, or the hippo walking around, and instantly I know that it's a hippo, or the elephant that's nearby and blocking me from walking to my tent. So I have to wait or find a different route to get to my tent. So many different moments there that were so exciting.
Yeah. And the wildlife, right? Like the wildlife over there is crazy. Like there's so many different beautiful animals and stuff. What was your favorite one?
I mean, I feel like a lot of people, their favorite one is the lion. For me, the lion really stood. I am a Leo as well, so I really wanted to see a lion. There was an amazing encounter where it was probably my third day there. So I think my friends, they paid off the animals because I saw all the animals in the first week. But there were 3 male lions that just were casually walking through our camp, probably about 30 meters away from where I was standing. And one of them even looked at me. He made some eye contact, looked at me, thought I'm probably too skinny or more of a toothpick for him to enjoy. So continued on and ventured off. That and the wild dogs. Those are some impressive, beautiful animals. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So incredible. Like being able to see them in person, like we see all these photos and videos of them, but to go and experience it in person is like such a different thing, right? And I think that's what makes it so beautiful about like traveling yourself and not just like looking at travel videos. It's like when you actually experience it yourself, it's a totally different thing. And it's very beautiful to be able to see things with your own eyes. And so like, yeah, what's some other things? What's some other things you've seen around the world that's been really inspiring and you can share some stories on?
So I did a big road trip through the US last year. I did a 3-month road trip with my partner, and we got a car, and we
Not a van,
built
just a car?
Just a car. It was a car that we got for free from our friend. So we were very blessed, very lucky. And we went to go visit her up in Montana. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous location. There's no internet where she was living. And we're out in the valley between the mountains in the nature, swimming naked in the streams. It was blissful. And we just built out the car. We just built a bed in there, and probably should have thought twice about how we built it, because by the time it was finished, we had about this much space between the roof and our faces when sleeping.
Oh, no.
But it was perfect. And yeah, we started up north, went through all the national parks up north, and met so many amazing people. That's what I enjoy the most about traveling, is literally finding or coming across or bumping into whatever it is, all these different individuals who have so many stories. Yeah. I love listening to stories. And so going to these beautiful places and listening to stories and sharing, it really warms my heart to be able to do that, as well as give that space and time to someone who might not come across so many travelers. And they're like, oh, wow, I get to tell my story now. So yeah, America was gorgeous, was amazing. And went all the way from the north, all the way down to the south, went to Burning Man. One of my brothers lives in LA. So it was a combination of all sorts. Yeah.
That's super cool. And then like while you were doing this trip or this travel, like, were you working online, or what did that kind of look like? How are you making your money to be able to fund this trip?
Yeah. So I'm a coach and I work online. So I have a lot of clients currently who are in the US, but even when I was there, I was still working online. Yeah. I'll tell you what, working in the US on the road online is difficult though, because as vast and modern the US is, there's a lot of blind spots there in terms of internet connection.
Yeah.
That being said, we ended up finding locations. Like a good spot to try is the parking lot of Walmart or Pizza Hut. So parking there, using their Wi-Fi and having my calls there.
Yeah.
And also I just helped out with a bunch of things on the road as well. So in terms of my finances, the online coaching, that was my spiel. That was what I do. And then every now and then we could stay somewhere for free, and I would help out with something if need be. So that allowed us to also venture around and live at some places for free.
Yeah, that's a really good way to do it. You know, like I remember when I was traveling around Australia, I was house sitting in all the places I was going to. So didn't have to pay for any accommodation, just would find people who were going away on holiday and look after their pets for the week or something. And that was a great way to get free accommodation in so many different places. So there's all these different options to travel around and not have to have so much money and financial support behind you, essentially, to be able to travel. Like, I think it's really just about getting creative with how you approach that and looking for different ways that you can make it happen. You know, so many people are like, no, I can't travel because I don't have the money. But if you get really creative and you look into things, there's different ways that you can do it. You know, there's very, very smart ways to travel and get accommodation paid for, get flights paid for, get food paid for. There's all these different ways to do things. So is there anything else you could share around that topic of different ways to travel and what you've experienced?
Well, I'm happy you mentioned the house sitting, because I did that for a bit as well, also in the US. And there's so many amazing websites, not only in the US, but all around the world, where it offers you the opportunity to look for homes. There's a global website that we used, Trusted House Sitters, and that's in the UK, that's in America, that's in a lot of different places in Europe. I'm not sure if they are present in Australia or not, but they are worldwide. On another note, I own a house. I bought a house in the Netherlands before I decided to go into the direction of becoming a digital nomad. I didn't buy it with the intention of being able to travel, but it kind of fell on my plate, and I was lucky enough to be able to buy it. Because I'm a builder, I reconstructed it myself, renovated it, and therefore I was able to rent it out afterwards. And that became the foundation of what allowed me to actually be on the move. It's not the largest foundation, but it was enough for me to be able to pay my bills and well, have my food. And so the reason I'm sharing this is because I know not everyone is able to buy a house at the situation, but there might be people out there who do have homes and they feel stuck because they're like, well, I own a house and now I can't move around. And it's a beautiful opportunity to look into what the laws are in your country and figure out, am I allowed to rent out my house or not? And then take that leap of faith, rent it out and understand which contracts are allowed. So that's something that works very well, especially for the hands-on people. I'm more of a hands-on person than an online person. There are ways of doing it, even though you're more want to be busy with it physically.
Yeah.
On that note as well, there are always opportunities out there in the different places that you go to, as I mentioned earlier. So you could live somewhere for free by offering your hands and your skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then on the digital side, there are so many opportunities and ways of how you can, especially nowadays, work online. My partner, she transcribes, she subtitles online. So if you have skills in languages, there are so many opportunities in that direction as well. Yeah.
I love that. Super valuable to know that, like there's not just the opportunities that you have in person, like to work jobs while you're traveling around and stuff. Cause there's lots of like different backpacker communities and different jobs that fall within those communities that you can get while you're traveling around. And those like more in-person jobs, but then there's also the online side of things, which has opened up so many more opportunities to people and so much more access to things. And so I think that's really interesting for people to start exploring and start learning more about, is like, how can I start making money online? Just start with that question and just go down the rabbit hole, because there's so many different ways to do it online now. And that's really going to open up a lot of different potential to make money online, which is going to then allow you to travel and allow you to work from wherever in the world. Because if you're working online, you just need a laptop and internet connection and you're good to go. So I think that's what makes it really interesting with the whole digital nomad thing is you just need one opportunity to make money online and then you're good, you're set. But I know you mentioned as well with struggling with like internet connection and stuff like that. Is that something that you find is like a common issue when you're traveling around, like finding hotspots for internet and little places where you can set up and work? Like, has that been an issue for you while you're traveling around and trying to work at the same time?
I love that question because it has. I didn't ever think I would say yes to that, but it really has. And there are so many places around the world that are very kind to nomads, digital nomads, because they actually focus the way they've set up their systems over there based around that. So that is something to take into consideration, whether or not that location has solid internet or not. Or if it doesn't, what other solutions you may have? Because that was a struggle for me. In Africa, there's one location where there was internet, and it's all solar panel powered. And so when I had my calls in the US, it was normally before sunrise or after sunset. And so what then often took place was I had to make sure that on that particular day, I didn't use the internet or power, or my friends didn't use the internet and power on that day. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough power to have my call.
Oh no. So it's like hot water, but with internet.
Exactly. It was amazing as well to experience that. But it did feel, for me more specifically than for my clients, it felt a little unnerving and in some ways unprofessional. That being said, my clients really enjoyed it as well. They're like, dude, you're out in the bush, I get it. But for the travelers out there who do want to start moving around and working online, definitely look into places and locations that feel great, as well as have the stability of what the internet has to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. And like of the places you've traveled to, what's been like the percentage that's had strong, stable internet, and what's the percentage that hasn't?
Well, in the last 1.5 years, I would say the percentage of strong internet was probably about 30% and of weak internet has been 70%. But
oh wow,
that's also because of the locations that I chose.
Yeah.
You know, Guatemala, I was on the lake over there, and there's lots of digital nomads, but the internet was terrible.
So would you say you prefer to like go to those places that are a little bit more isolated and a little bit more out there and away from like major cities and stuff like that? And that's kind of your vibe with traveling, or are you a city traveler? What do you prefer?
No, I'm definitely more of a vibe of wanting to travel to places that are out there. That being said, I have shifted a little bit in how I want to do my traveling, because I've been traveling for the last 2 years straight, and it's been great. But in many ways, I felt a little, I wouldn't say ungrounded, but in some ways, a little ungrounded. And so therefore, my style nowadays is more finding a location that I would consider home. That's my grounded space. That's where I have my stuff. And then when I do go traveling, I will still be able to leave my stuff there. And it feels more like, okay, I'm going on holiday for 2 or 3 months, and holiday still being working on the go. However, I have a location I call home. And that was a topic I wanted to touch base on, which we spoke about the other day, actually, which is about taking your home with you. Especially when you're doing so much traveling, it's so important to feel that groundedness. Otherwise, it can be a little overwhelming of all the different locations that you go to. Yeah. And it can be so simple. Like for me, I call it my portable altar. It's literally just a few things that I take with me, and it's related to, I would say, my newer version of myself that I connect with. And I set it up every location that I go to, whether it's when I was in the car, I would set it up in the car, or when we camped somewhere, I would set it up on camp somewhere. When I'm in a hotel, I would set it up, whether it was on the chair, on the table, on the floor, it doesn't matter. But I created a little altar, and that was a part of me.
How big is it?
Mine is literally, it's like, you know, let's say 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters. I just have a cloth. I have a Ganesha, I have a few crystals. That's my vibe right now. And I create something that feels good for me. And that's my space to journal or to meditate or to just sit and read.
Yeah.
But that's my home.
I love that, because it gives you that like a bit more groundedness, you know, like, hey, I can make this space my home. Like even, you know, I know when we were talking about this before, it's like, you know, I've always struggled with like going to different hotels and never wanting to like unpack my bag, because I know that I'm leaving in a week or 2 weeks time. It's like, what's the point? What's the point of putting my clothes away neatly in the cupboard and hanging them up on the clothes hangers? Like, what's the point in doing that? And so that's something I've struggled with, is definitely like making my space homely, like while I'm traveling. So do you have anything else around that, like that helps you to get out of that mindset of like, oh, this is just a hotel room, I'm not going to use anything, just like keep everything in my bag? What's helped you to like break past that?
Well, actually, exactly what you just shared there. So for me as well, for years on end, I never unpacked, ever. It was, whether it was 2 days or 2 weeks, I would have it in my backpack and I would scruffle through that. Unpacking, the moment you enter into that room and you've checked in, creates that feeling of being home. And if you're only there for 2 days, fair enough, you might not want to unpack the whole bag, but unpacking your essentials, you know, having a space for your toilet bag, having the main clothes that you normally wear, take those out of the bag and have that in the cupboard. Have that, for me, that altar, or whatever it may be for you, you know, whether it's you have your laptop and you want to have the fire background, honestly, that does wonders as well. So whatever works for you, to allow that to feel homely. And what's worked best for me is to do it instantly, because if you say, I'll do it later, often it doesn't happen for me. So, you know, do it as soon as you check in. It's like, okay, I'm home. And then boop, go out the door and do whatever you want to go do. Yeah. But then when you come home, it feels like you're home.
Yeah, I love it. So this is good actually that we've kind of been on this on a few different interesting topics that not many people really talk about, because you know when you talk about becoming a digital nomad, everyone likes to glorify it and look at the upsides. So maybe we can continue this conversation in that direction of like, what are some of the downsides of being a digital nomad? You know, like we talked about sometimes bad internet connection and not being able to get access to that. We also talked about like just now with our space not feeling homely and not feeling as grounded. And so what are some other things that come to your mind that you've struggled with from traveling and working at the same time, and what kind of comes up for you?
Discipline, time. You know, it's so easy to get distracted by the many different things that are taking place in the different locations that you get at. So finding a system or a rhythm that works, that allows you to take a step back, to rejuvenate your energy, and not feel that overwhelm. Overwhelm is something that's underrated in many ways when traveling, because yes, we are able to see the world, and yes, we are able to explore everything. But there was a point where after the US, you know, I went from one national park to the other, to the other, to the other. And by the time I reached national park number 5 or 6, I felt a little depleted. Even though I love the nature that much, and normally the nature is what energizes me, I felt like, oh, okay, it's another path through the forest, and it's beautiful, and it was because I was doing it too much. So finding that balance, finding that rhythm that works for you, finding that way of allowing your energy to rejuvenate itself is key. When being on the move.
So what does that look like? Because that's like, it sounds like it's like travel fatigue, right? Like you're traveling to so many new places that you're just getting that fatigue of like, oh, just another place, another location. So like, how do you combat that? Do you slow things down? Like what kind of has worked for you to battle that?
For me, I don't need to see everything. You know, when I was younger, I used to have FOMO. If I went to a place, I felt like, oh, I have to go and see that place and I have to go check that out. I don't tend to have that anymore. I choose a few places that are non-negotiable. Let's say I'm traveling through Thailand. There's might be 5 non-negotiables of locations I want to see or things I want to see. And everything around that is a bonus, whether that's me taking a step back and being in my home and reading a book, or whether that's me being out and meeting people, being social, whatever that may look like. Have those non-negotiables, and then include non-negotiables being self-care, being those moments of slowing things down, of taking a step back and saying no every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of those self-care things that you do that help to slow down?
Reading definitely is something I've been doing a lot of in the last couple of years. Meditation is something I picked up since I live here in Bali, which I love and I could highly recommend. Something I do every single morning is create intention. So when I'm laying in bed, before I get out, it take 5 minutes and connect with your body and ask yourself, like, what do I want today? It's so important for us to be connected with what our energy is of that particular day. So we might have planned to go rock climbing on that particular day, but if I wake up that morning and I'm actually like, oh, actually I'm feeling a little fragile today, listen to that and then ask yourself, like, okay, do I want to stay in this? Do I want to be soft today, or do I want to snap out of this? And do I want to go climb that rock? Through intention setting, it allows the rest of your day to be, well, whatever you want that intention to be, whether that's blissful or soft or energized and high and lots of magic, you know?
Absolutely. So like that, it definitely sounds like a lot of awareness, like having a lot of awareness of paying attention to yourself and the feelings and what's coming up for you. And so is that something you'd say that you picked up from traveling, or is this kind of something that you did before you started traveling? How did you come into that? Because I find it so interesting hearing so many different stories of people who have traveled to different places and they've started to become more aware about themselves and their feelings and their spiritual side and just all these things that they didn't really pay attention to before traveling. So is that a similar experience for you? And I'd love to hear more about that story of how you unfolded.
Yeah. For me, absolutely. Like through having moved around so much from when being a small child to where I'm at now, having gone to so many different locations has allowed me to understand different personalities, different perspectives of cultures. And that alone has created so much awareness in understanding. And then on top of that, being out in nature, it allows time to slow down. It allows you to be in a space of, okay, woof, I'm used to, if you're living in the city, of course, I'm used to such a fast-paced world. And especially nowadays with us working online and for us digital nomaders, it's so important to be able to remove ourselves from those distractions and take a step back. And traveling has offered so much of that to me. Through slowing time down, it also means having more time and space with yourself. So whether you like it or not, you're going to create some form of awareness. And whether that's in a form of a trigger or in a form of bliss, you know, they're very closely related. And figuring out and understanding, okay, well, what does that mean and how do I overcome that? And traveling has been a method for me for many, many, many years that has allowed that to take place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to wrap things up here. But I would love to hear from you, like, what's any last thoughts that you would add to people that are maybe aspiring to become digital nomads? I think that's can pretty much be the main audience of people watching this, but then also to anyone who is already a digital nomad, if there's any advice or any last thoughts you'd like to throw in.
I'd say to focus on the ones aspiring to become a digital nomad. And this is not me being a downer, but understand that freedom is amazing. It feels great. And there's also work involved. It's not a matter of, oh, I'm free, I can do whatever I want. And in many ways, it is like that. But understanding that there is, you know, the counterpart, the yin and the yang. And there are lonely times. There are times when you're by yourself. And there are moments where you want to be back home with your family or with your friends because you miss them. And those can be difficult times. Those are difficult moments, and understanding that is a reality of becoming a digital nomad. However, you also have the freedom to always go back. So take that leap of faith, step out of that comfort zone, even if it is for a little moment, dabble into it, see what it feels like to you, and then base your decision off of that. If it feels great, boom, go for it. If it doesn't, boom, still go for it, or don't, you know, whatever. You have the power of deciding what it is that you want for your future.
I love that. That's such a powerful message, such a powerful message. We're in control, right? It's all down to us and our choice. And so that's a great way to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Arny, for jumping on. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
So probably my socials would be best. So my Instagram is Arny de Corvey. I'm a transformation and mindset coach. So I do focus a lot on shifting perspectives and helping people understand how to live and lead from their, let's call it their internal nomad. So Arny de Corvey on Instagram or Arnaud de Corver on Facebook.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing your stories.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you.